Right now, politics has very little effect on markets until it comes down to money. It definitely affect the markets. The interest rate market, right now, I think the markets are trying to assume that the Fed is done hiking, and I think that is incorrect. Well, I think that's what the markets are trying to base and pricing in right now, which was one of the reasons for the rally that we've seen until the last couple of days. Look, this inflation problem, which is their excuse to hike rates, is not going away. In fact, it's going to get worse. When Saudi Arabia came out and cut production, through OPEC, the gangsters and criminals of OPEC cut production, and that, of course, forced prices dramatically higher. Oil's up 7%. I think they're going to make one more cut before we get into our driving season here, and you're going to see crude oil back over 100. The Fed is going to be forced, because they made the wrong decision in the first place, to start hiking to try to slow inflation instead of doing the right thing and saying to the government, use your own natural resources and we can bring inflation back under control and people can actually earn more money than they're spending, right? Because right now, income is much lower than the cost of living.
Do you agree with the theory that the interest rate needs to go above the inflation rate before the inflation rate comes down for good?
Well, again, I don't think that they're necessarily truly related. There's two types of inflation. There is good inflation, which is driven by supply and demand, and then there's the inflation that's caused by government, which becomes taxation without representation. I believe in 1776 we went to war for that. Okay, so I think there's a difference. If it's good inflation, then it doesn't really matter because everybody's making enough money to overcome that inflation. This inflation should not have been. We should not be in this position because we could have saved ourselves a long time ago by not stopping the production of oil and still being a net exporter. Because we use 80% of every product you use is involved with fossil fuels. So you can't get away from using oil until you have a better way, and there is no better way yet. No problem with that, David. But right now, you buy a car, you buy an electric car, they tell you to charge it overnight because the power grid won't support it during the day. Again, you have to fix everything before you can get to that place of electric vehicles. You have to fix your power grid. This country has too many times not done the right thing. In New Orleans, Katrina, that should have never happened as bad as it was. They were told to fix the levees. They said they chose not to. Well, look what happens. The Colonial Pipeline was a problem. What did Joe Biden say? It's a private company, not our problem. Well, you don't think that they can hack into our power grid as well? You don't think some of these issues are outside interference? Fix the power grid, give us a plan, and tell us how we're going to get to where you want to get to, and then it's great. Mm-hmm. But we're so far away from that is still, in my opinion, a pipe dream. Okay, you can get all the guarantees. California, by 2035, there'll be no more lawnmowers. Okay, I say BS. Okay, I don't buy anything until they can prove the fact that they can actually function with those products. They've already proved that wind turbines do nothing. They do not create enough energy for anybody. We cannot get to electric energy yet because we don't have a power grid that works. So there are so many issues other than in very small instances that we're not even near that part. Okay, so again, will it affect the market? Yeah, but not tomorrow. Inflation is still going up. What? Because they reported a ridiculous number of 6.5 because they don't count food and energy. They use 4% for the number of food and energy. Now, the average American household, barring an emergency, spends a lot more than 4% on overall food and energy. And I'm telling you right now, food and energy are up 50 to 60%. So how they come up with 6.5 is a joke. And what do you think the next number is going to be with the new rise in oil right now, suddenly? Okay. Again, these numbers are bullshit. Excuse me. I don't mean to use bad language, but they're garbage. As is the jobs number that's coming out Friday. You want a real look at the jobs number, look at the U6, not the U3, and you'll find out how many people are not working. That this 3% unemployment is ridiculous. Look at all the layoffs we're going through. Okay, McDonald's, Amazon, they're all laying off like crazy. So you can't tell me that the economy is in good shape, nor have we surpassed the rate of inflation. The people cannot live on what they're earning versus what they have to pay for goods and services. I think we're in a recession already. When they changed the rules of what a recession was, all right, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, they decided to change that rule about 8 months ago. Okay, so I think we're in a recession now. People aren't working. You can't go to a restaurant. There's no service. Half the drive-through restaurants, half the fast food places can't open their dining room because they can't get help. Okay, there's no help to be had. It's laughable. It's cryable, actually. Well, the markets are very thin, and there's going to be always the money to flow somewhere. And if you ask me, I would think that this is being kind of held up artificially. The volume is very light, so that the amount of dollars to keep the market afloat is not that much. You pick certain stocks, you can push a little bit faster. I think you're going to see a lot of outflows now. You can get 3-month CDs now for almost 5%. So I think a lot of the people that are in the markets that don't want to be in are going to start taking out outflows. And we just had a recent period where people wanted their money from BlackRock, they couldn't get it. Okay, there was 4.5 billion asked for. They only approved 666 million. So there's a lot of signs that are out there. Warning signs show up. The question is, will the American people or will investors look at the warnings? And there are so many warnings in this market that I would suspect, which I've said all along, we're going down 50 to 70% when this next move starts.
And do you know whether, well, nobody knows for sure, but what could be a trigger for this next move downward?
It'll be more banking failures. It'll be continued hiking of the Fed, of the ignorance of the Fed. It'll be the collapsing of the farming industry, which again, the pricing, not being able to produce food. There's a whole bunch of things that'll go, but it'll start probably with the banks again. Okay, because again, we've gotten the assurance that the banks are in good shape. It's like the coach on the sidelines. You're doing a great job. The owner tells him, and he fires him the next day. I would have no problem bailing out the depositors. I do have a problem banging out the banks that then take bonuses afterwards. Okay, I have a fundamental problem with that. For now, not only that doesn't mean we're going straight down. I think we're going to probably churn sideways for a while. I think you're coming into an interesting period, and of course we have to let these gas prices play out. Because they're just hitting the street, right? So we have to let this new higher priced gas play out again into the market and kind of see where we're at. Again, I don't think the real selling will start, just because I said it will. I think the real selling will start probably somewhere, back half of the year when some of the banks start to fail and some of the real data starts to come out that we'll be privy to, and we'll find out that we're in a lot more trouble. Because when you start getting reassurances from Janet Yellen, that usually means there's a lot deeper problem underneath the surface that has not come out yet. I think gold was, as you and I talked about in the past, I think gold's going to make a new high this year. I think there's an outside chance it can get to 2,500, maybe a little bit higher. I think there's some real serious movement there, and I think there's a big demand. And silver, I think, is going to be probably into the mid 30s. I think the banking crisis once again triggered two things. It triggered more of an interest in metals to people that didn't buy metals in the past, and it triggered a bigger interest back into the cryptocurrency world. Because we've seen those also. If you go back and look at charts and look at the correlation to the banking crisis at SVB and those items, you'll see that they've all jumped since that has happened. And I think people are getting tired of the ridiculous fiat currency system, which is basically fraudulent because there's no backing of any currency. So it's just a bunch of central bankers playing monopoly money, trying to figure out who needs to reduce the value of their currency first so they can do something else, which makes no sense, because if a lower dollar means you can export more, aren't you dropping the price anyways because your dollar's worth less? I'm not worried about losing all its value. I'm not worried about not being the reserve currency. My concern is the digital currency that I believe has a chance to become a world reserve currency. Okay, this is what the euro did, right? When they came in the eurozone, they put all the Deutschmark and all the currencies together. I think that you can see that with the digital currency, and that would be a concern. Again, eventually we're going to have to give up our paper money, which again then gives up your entire life and all your privacy to go along with it.
I guess the question is,
they're taking. So now if they take my money, okay, now they've got everything. Okay, I can't do anything. I don't have to take my phone where I go. I can leave my phone at home. I could care less, right? I don't have to go onto my internet browser. But if I want to go do something that I want to do without anybody knowing, I can't do it once I go digital. My freedom is over. Your life is over. It's the end of an era of freedom, capitalism, and moving forward. Okay, it takes away everything once you go to that digital world. Control. Listen, you're going to be controlled by government. Government was never meant to be this big, right? And if you look at the United States Constitution, government is supposed to be run city, county, state, and the Federal Reserve was supposed to be an overseer. It was never intended to be the biggest employer in the world. Government wants to control your life, okay? Which is why I would be willing to bet, maybe not in my lifetime, but soon after, there's going to be another revolution in this country for sure, because people aren't going to take this anymore. This is getting well out of hand when you strip people of their capital, you strip them of their money, you strip them of their opportunity to become true capitalists, to be the next Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. Okay, they're taking all that away. Okay, you've got only you have now is big companies. They've destroyed all the little guys already. Yeah, real estate probably not so much anymore because they can't afford the juice, the interest payment. Gold, silver, platinum, crypto. That's where they're going to go. They're going to go to gold, silver, platinum, and cryptocurrencies. I don't think there's no place else to go unless and real estate. I mean, again, any hard asset that you have control of, that's where you're going to go. So we'll see how that goes. And again, that'll get a lot of flack from the federal government because, of course, God forbid we would have an actual real asset that couldn't be manipulated by the Federal Reserve or by the government.
Stocks this year.
I think for sure. I think it dramatically so, because I think they're going to be higher and I think that the stock markets are going to be lower. Let's as long as I'm an American, which I will always be, I'm going to always invest in America, no matter how bitter I am about what's going on with this administration, because again, we get a new election in a couple of years, we can turn some of the things back over again. I believe in any good company that you think is going to be in business for the next 20 years, okay, I think it's worth investing in if you feel if it's a value play for you. Walmart, Apple, any one of those companies, because again, for 200 years, the stock market's gone up an average of 8.5% year over year, and since 1950, it's going to an average of 10% year over year. So I don't expect those metrics to change. Once those change, then we all become enslaved into the government clutches with no freedom at all. I think obviously AI is very big, but I think in my view, I don't want to necessarily put too much money into what may be work in the future because I don't know if I can pick the right company. But I know that if I invest in Apple today, that's the right company. I know if I've invested in Microsoft today, that's a pretty good company. If I know I can go to Walmart, that's a good company. So they make money now. I don't want to be, not that I wouldn't take little bits of money and put it into some of these other offshoots. But again, if we go back to the 90s, and all the internet companies, how many, 99% of them failed before they got there. So there's a lot of come out there. Which one do you pick? My first rule of thumb in an investment, the company's got to make money. If they don't make money, I won't even look at them for an investment.